All right, now we're going to take just a brief look here at the Maccabeen Revolt, or what's sometimes known as the Hasmonean Revolt. Hasmonean is kind of the family name. And so all this is occurring under the Antiochus IV, who is a Seleucid ruler. And it's not really quite clear why Antiochus um, did some of the things that he did that ignited the revolt. So basically, what he ends up doing is desecrating the temple and outlawing uh, Jewish practices. All of this happens just after, according to Josephus, just happens after he tries to go into Egypt. So Antiochus wants to expand his Seleucid empire, and so he marches towards the Egyptian territory, so where the Ptolemies rule. There's some internal conflicts that are going on in Egypt, and he sees this as an opportunity to take advantage of that. However, while he's on their doorstep, they had appealed to Rome for help and assistance, and Rome steps in, and an ambassador from Rome meets Antiochus, and basically, according to the story, draws a circle around Antiochus and tells him that if he steps outside of that circle in the direction of Egypt, then he will have to answer to Rome as well. So Antiochus becomes humiliated, and it's on his way back that he, you know, takes over the temple, and he, outlaws Judaism. So it's still not quite clear exactly why all of this takes place. There's lots of different um, explanations have been offered by scholars. Certainly, one of the things that Antiochus has been doing is he's been trying to force Hellenism, force Greek customs and values to in the region, and he has been meeting with resistance. And so, while he does have the high priest on his side, there is the populist groups that are against some of this activity and are resisting some of this. So the other thing is, you know, Jerusalem is situated in a very important position for Antiochus in his relationship with Egypt, and he may have been trying to um, gather greater political strength in the region, greater unification around Hellenistic cultures, and so that he knows that his empire is stronger. So, or it could be that there are people inside Jerusalem who are really crying out for Antiochus's help. These are the pro-Hellenistic people who want him to come in and to rescue, as it were, them from the people who are resisting. Or it may be that he does it because he knows that there are these particular groups that might even be kind of pro Egypt. And so he doesn't want them, he wants to squash, as it were, any potential uprising. So we're not really quite sure why exactly Antiochus does what he does, but when he does it, there are different kinds of responses that are going to take place to this activity. So you are going to have collaborators, possibly someone like Alchemist, who is trying to get others to adopt Hellenism. You may have accommodators, in other words, people who, it's not their preference that they are ruled by the Seleucid, by someone like Antiochus, but they're just trying to live at peace, and they're trying to figure out what they can do and not try to cause any unnecessary offense. And so, as long as they feel like there's some way in which they can practice their faith and still make some accommodations to Antiochus, they're trying to do that. You'll have pacifists, and so these are people, they're just not going to fight. They don't like what's going on. They may try to vacate the area, but they're not going to get involved in any kind of resistance. Then you have the defenders, that what's sometimes referred to as the Hasidims or Hasidims. You could look at First Maccabees, chapter 2 and verse 42, or chapter 7, verses 12 to 18. The Hasmoneans themselves are something, first, of defenders of the faith and kind of resisting Antiochus. So, and you also have aggressors. Some people are mentioned in First Maccabees 5:62, Joseph and Azariah, and these are people who may, try to find ways to attack, not just defend when they're being attacked, but actually to go out and to attack representations of Antiochus's empire. So you have lots of different people who are responding in different ways. And this is important to remember, especially when it comes to the New Testament, is because when we see Jesus in the Jesus movement, you kind of wonder, well, there are different kinds of Jews who fit along these lines with Rome. There are some who are collaborators. There are some who are accommodators. There are some who are pacifists. There are some who want to defend and rise up when they think that they're being attacked. And there are those who are going to end up being aggressors. And so, how is the Jesus movement viewed? Is it calling for aggression against Rome? Is it calling for pacifism? Certainly, some of Jesus' teaching seems to suggest pacifism. Are they really just accommodators? In other words, we're going to wait for God's kingdom to come. Just live, buy your time, do what you can until God's kingdom will arrive and will replace the Romans. So just like there were these different responses to the Seleucids, so too there were different responses to Rome. So I'm just going to list here some of the key Hasmonean players. There's lots of people that are part of the kind of the background of this story, but here are some key ones. So certainly you want to know Judas Maccabeus Hashmonai. So this is our fearless leader who's responsible for rededicating the temple on December the 14th, 164 BCE. So this is one of the sons of Mattathias, who is the father of the Hasmonean, this family. Mattathias was a priest himself, and he rose up when living in a village known as Modine. Antiochus had sent a representative to this town and tried to get people to make a sacrifice to the god and called for Jews in the area to do that. Well, Matthias rose up, killed a Jew who did make a sacrifice, killed the representative of Antiochus, and from that moment, he and his family then were kind of dedicated to getting rid of this Hellenistic influence and being willing to die in order to do it. So Mattathias had several sons. Judas, I believe, is the third son in the family. And so he becomes the most successful at engaging Antiochus's armies. And he engages through guerrilla warfare. So instead of the kind of traditional fight where you kind of find a valley and you both line up on the side of the valley and you go at it, and whoever last man standing is the winner. Instead, since they know the hill countries, the internal areas of Palestine better than Antiochus's armies does, they hide in the hills. They find where they're camping. They come down. They hit them hard, and they rush back into the to the hills. So this activity of coming down, hitting them hard, and then running back, it got Judas the nickname the Hammerer. So that's what Maccabeus means, the Hammerer. So this is the key figure for this family. Another one is Lysias. So Lysias is Antiochus the fifth minister of state in Judea. So there's going to be what's going to be one is kind of this independence to allow Jews to worship in their temple, worship their God, and to practice their faith, so like circumcision, Sabbath observance, so that they don't have to adopt Hellenistic religions. They don't have to worship any gods that Antiochus orders. So although they're going to have this kind of independence, there's still going to be this influence in the area with Antiochus through his minister of state, so Lysias. Then we're going to have Demetrius the First Soter. This is going to be Antiochus's nephew, who will rule in the area. Then you're going to have Alchemist. We mentioned him just briefly. He's a kind of a Syrian sympathizer who becomes high priest until his death in around 159 BCE. So you want to see 1 Maccabees 9:54 about Alchemist. Then we also have a Jonathan Hasmonite. So I'm going to just take you up here to the key Hasmonean players up to the 150 BCE, and then we'll later on look at other Hasmonean players and what they're able to do in another video. But right now, Jonathan Hasmone, who dies around 142 BCE, he becomes the first non-Zadokite high priest. So this is quite important. So the Hasmonean family are a priestly family. But to be a high priest, according to tradition, you had to come from a particular line of priests. Not all priests could be high priests. So, but Jonathan assumes the role of high priest. Now, he's also kind of ruling in this area. Now, they're a vassal state, so he's going to exercise some authority in this while they're resisting, Antiochus. And so taking on this role of high priest makes him this kind of ruler of this religious theocracy. And that probably upset some priests. Now, maybe our group who will go out and start the Dead Sea Scrolls, maybe these were priests who were annoyed that Jonathan took on this role because he wasn't coming from the legitimate line. So, but the high priest is really now a political figure, not just a religious figure. And so to control the area, he takes on the greatest important title, which is high priest. Now, he is not yet claiming to be king. That will come later with a different Hasmonean, but he is becoming high priest. And since he doesn't come from that legitimate line, that creates some real tensions and problems for certain priests. All right, that gives you just a brief kind of introduction to the start of the Hasmonean family and the kind of the rise and what they're kind of dealing with. And in future videos, we'll talk more about the rule of the Hasmonean family.